Okay, Algebra 2 skills number 18, synthetic division. Let's look at the details surrounding synthetic division. First, rules. There's only certain times you can use synthetic division. It's definitely preferred over long division, but unfortunately it's limited in its use. It should only be used when the divisor is of the form x plus or minus a number. So we'll see some examples to illustrate what that means. Some rules surrounding it to remember. Change sign from the constant in divisor. And we'll talk about that again when we see it. If the number's below the line, you're going to multiply by the outside number. And if you're stacked, you're going to add. So let's see all that with a couple examples. So here we're asked to divide. So first, can you use synthetic division? And yes, the divisor is this part, and it is x plus 9. If it were x plus or x minus a number, you're good. So we're going to, with a slideshow here, we're going to see the entire solution and talk about it. So here is that same problem. Notice I've got this L-looking shape here. Okay, so let's talk about what all this is. So we changed this to -9. So that was the first rule that was mentioned. Make sure you change the sign in the divisor. The reason we do that is so we can add through here instead of subtract over and over, because adding's easier. So if you proactively change the sign, you can add instead of subtract. The first thing we do is just drop this 2. So the 2 is down here. We'll explain the colors in a minute. And this other rule we saw, or one of the other rules, was if you're below the line, you multiply by the outside number. So 2 times -9, that's -18. And the final rule is if you're stacked like these two numbers, you add. So 17 plus -18 is -1. And then you get into a loop where you just exercise those two rules over and over. So below the line, you multiply. -1 times -9 is +9. You write it in the next available spot. You're stacked, so you add. There's -3. You multiply because you're below the line. -3 times -9 is +27. And then you add to get 0. Your quotient here, and notice the color coding, the quotient is this, 2x squared minus x minus 3. So remember, we had to divide by a linear factor. This is x the first. So anytime you divide by a linear factor, it's going to take your dividend right here, and it's going to reduce that by 1. So this 3 dropped to a 2. And then notice that our degrees here are of each term is dropping by 1 each time. So 2, 1, and then x to the 0 power here. So notice that the 2 goes here, the -1 goes here, and the -3 goes there. So when you write your quotient, you're going to drop the dividend's degree by 1, and then you're just going to descend. This last number is the remainder, and because there was no remainder here, we're not going to worry about dividing that, or writing that down rather. Okay, so for a second example, sometimes you get a dividend that's just kind of messed up here. It's not in standard form. You're missing x squared. Though, again, you are able to use synthetic division here because your divisor is of the form x plus or minus a number. So what you want to do is fix this dividend. You fix it by putting it in standard form and including any missing terms. Okay, so since we established the beginning as x cubed, you must have a representative for x squared. If you don't, then the synthetic division process would be as if you're doing 4x squared here. So make sure you get a 0x squared in there in this instance. Anything that's missing, including the constant, if you're missing that, it needs to have a 0 to represent it. Okay, so let's carry that over to the next line. There's that same problem fixed. And again, we'll look at the numbers and talk about them. So again, change the sign, drop the first one, and now those two rules. If you're below the line, you multiply. 4 times 2 is 8. If you're stacked, you add. 0 plus 8 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. -13 plus 16 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. And then 9 plus 6 is 15. Notice here we have a number at the end instead of 0. Well, a non-zero number instead of 0 there. And here's what it looks like. So again, you drop the dividend by 1. In both our examples, our dividend was cubic, so therefore our quotient is quadratic, 4x squared. The 4 goes there. Then 8x, because you drop your powers by 1. The second to last number is your constant, and the last number is your remainder. So remember, from the long division video, if you've seen that, or if you just work long division, if you have a remainder, you put it over the divisor. So this would be the quotient for the second example.